Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon spoilers video. So over the past couple of days we have a couple of new and interesting spoilers, so let's just go over them. First up we have Spiral Masquerade. So this is a 4-cost yellow option card with the main ability of for each of your Digimon activate the following effect. One of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 3000 DP until the end of the turn, and then it has the ever so nice security ability of activating its main effect. This is a really good option card for Yellow to be playing around with, just because Yellow's been kind of needing a really good removal option card, and this is definitely looking to be one of the better options that they have to be playing around with, just because in BT05, Yellow already is playing a lot more into this whole like swarm the board strategy, so it's not very hard to get 2 to 3 to 4 Digimon out to really make use of this ability, and the fact that it's kind of acting similar to like how Shine Greymon acts with Tamers makes it a very powerful option card, just because you have the options and availability to whether you want to stack all of these instances of minus 3000 DP on one Digimon or split it up between multiple Digimon. And obviously, again, with the whole playing into the swarm the board strategy that Yellow's been playing around with in BT05, it's going to be even easier to just maximize on the potential of this card. But even if you're not trying to play into those aggressive swarm strategies, Yellow's still just going to end up having a board state, and they could very easily create their own board states. Even at worst, like if you have only 2 Digimon out, that's still minus 6000 for 4, and that's still just pretty good. And again, like this is just looking to be like one of the better Yellow removal option cards that they have. And again, it's not super hard to build a board state, no matter if you're playing the swarm the board strategy or if you're trying to be playing a little bit more conservative and controlling. Next up, we have Gladimon. So Gladimon is looking to be a pretty decent Digimon for the whole Crusadermon deck. So what this Digimon is doing is it is a level 4 yellow Digimon. Stats aren't anything too special, but it is a warrior type Digimon, so keep that in mind. And then it also has a very nice on-play ability where you get to look at your security stack, and then you can reveal one Digimon with the warrior or holy warrior in its type among them, and then add that card to your hand, and then if you do, then you get to recover 1. So this is kind of like copying the Tamer TK's ability, except it's not looking for just yellow Digimon in general, it's looking more specifically for warriors and holy warriors, but there's still a decent amount of warriors and holy warriors that we could pick from in the game, so Holy Warriors kind of just refers to some of the Royal Knights that we have. And then Warriors, we've just been slowly getting more and more Warriors. So there's still a decent amount of targets that this can pull from. But the fact that this is a Warrior allows it to play with a Crusadermon. So Crusadermon has the nice on-attack skill where you get to play a Warrior or level 3 yellow Digimon. So this is supposed to be meant to play with that Crusadermon strategy where you swing with Crusadermon, play this card, then trigger its ability. And then you could look for more cards to just synergize with Crusadermon. So I think this is going to be a pretty decent Digimon for that deck, and even if you're not just trying to search out Holy Warriors, can sometimes be interesting because a lot of the Royal Knights are Holy Warriors, so it's definitely going to be really interesting on how people utilize this card. But for what we have right now, I definitely think this card is going to be really decent in that Crusadermon style of deck. Next up, we have another Digitama. This time it is looking like it's going to be a new version of Sumimon. So Sumimon is definitely looking to be a pretty powerful Digitama, especially for those Diaboromon decks, because it has this nice inheritable skill that it gives, where when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon has unidentified in its typing, then you get to draw 1 card. Well, we already know that basically all of the Diaboromon stuff have unidentified, so that's kind of like the whole intended synergy. But the fact that Black is having a Digitama that allows them to draw a card is really, really powerful because Black really hasn't had a whole lot of card draw. But the point is it's supposed to interact with Diaboromon because he's unidentified, and then you try to spawn Diaboromon tokens, draw some cards, and do a whole bunch of crazy shenanigans. So I definitely think this card is going to be a really decent card, and this card is for sure going to be seeing play in those Diaboromon decks. Next up, we have another option card. So this time it is going to be the black option card of Destiny Destroyer. So as I mentioned before, this is a black option card. It has a play cost of 8, so it's a little bit on the higher side, but it has a really powerful main ability where you get to de-digivolve 3 on one of your opponent's Digimon, and then delete all of the opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 3 or less. And then you get the security ability of activating its main effect. So this is just a really powerful card just because it's kind of like Infinity Cannon, except it's slightly better and slightly worse. Infinity Cannon is at 6 to de-digivolve 4, but it doesn't do anything else, where this is at de-digivolve 3, and then you get to delete any of the opponent's Digimon that have a play cost of 3 or less. So just the added removal potential makes this card really, really powerful, and I think this card is going to see quite a bit of play, just because de-digivolve 3, let's just say even if it's on a Mega, we'll bring it all the way back down to a rookie, and then it's going to delete said rookie, so that's kind of like the whole intended purpose. But if they are playing a go wider strategy, then this will definitely punish them if they're just sitting on a whole bunch of low-cost rookies, so it'll just board wipe them and kill off their Mega at the same time. So I definitely think this is going to be a really powerful card to be playing around with. I just don't know exactly how much play this is going to see in that Diaboromon deck, just because that deck is already pretty tight on space, but just as a generic black option card, this is definitely looking like it's going to be one of the better black option cards, which is really good because black hasn't had that many good option cards that it wants to utilize, let alone good removal option cards that it wants to utilize. And then the last card that we got spoiled over the past couple of days is going to be All Delete. So this is just a really interesting card. Like, I don't know if it's like super good or if it's super bad, but regardless, it's definitely a really interesting card to think about. So what this card is it's a white option card, and it has a play cost of 10. So it's a really expensive option card in white. So we don't have a whole lot of those in the game currently, so that's what makes this card really, really interesting. And then it has the really powerful main ability where basically you get to bounce an Omnimon from your field to your hand, and then if you do, you delete all Digimon and all Tamers in play. And then obviously because you bounce to the Omnimon, you have to trash all of your Digivolution sources under him. So this is just a really powerful option card to be thinking on playing around with, just because the ability to delete all Digimon and all Tamers is something we don't really have in the game. So I'm not entirely sure if this card is too good or not, just because thinking about this card, it's just really interesting. So first, in order to think about using this card, you need to have an Omnimon on the field. And if you already have an Omnimon on the field, then that means you're probably in a winning position. Just because having an Omnimon on the field and keeping him around means that he's going to be recursive pressure, especially depending on the type of Omnimon that you have. Then it's definitely going to be a very, very threatening card to just have sitting on the field. And more often than not, you're going to be winning if you already have your Omnimon. So again, you might not even need the board wipe potential of this card if you're just already in that winning position because of the Omnimon that you're playing. And then on top of this, you need to give the opponent 10 memory, and then you lose everything on your field, and the opponent loses everything on their field. Yes, you do get to bounce the Omnimon back in your hand, but that Omnimon is going to be a little bit harder to replay off of nothing, and the opponent is going to be having whatever memory you're going to be giving them in order to set up, and then they have the potential to just try to choke you out because, you know, you lost your Tamers and your other Digimon as well. Yes, I do understand that the raising, breeding, or nursery area does kind of like get around this, but if you're telegraphing the fact that you're sitting on an Omnimon and you're keeping something back in your raising, is kind of just telegraphing the fact that, oh, I'm going to prepare for a board wipe. And even if you try to like mind game the opponent, then it doesn't really matter, just because like if the opponent's already winning, even if you have an Omnimon on the field, then this card isn't really going to be doing too much, because then they don't really need to invest extra into their board state if they're winning while you have an Omnimon on the field. And then even if they're not winning, like, why would you board wipe yourself just to clear the opponent's stuff out, especially if you're telegraphing it with holding a Digimon back in your raising area. Like, again, I don't know exactly how good this card is. There's some niche situations where even if you have an Omnimon on the field and you are losing, and you are just able to just board wipe out of nowhere, then yes, catching the opponent by surprise with this board wipe is probably going to be really, really devastating for them. But most of the time, this seems like it's just not a super good card, just because, again, if you have an Omnimon on the field, you're going to be winning more often than not. On top of which, if you tried to telegraph this card by holding something back in the raising area, then the opponent should be smart enough to pick up on that and then play around the fact that this is coming. And again, if they're already winning while you have an Omnimon on the field, then you probably aren't going to be winning even after this card is played. So it's just a really interesting card to think about, and I definitely think it's a card to look out for, just because it is such a unique card, because we don't have a whole lot of cards that just do this, and yeah, that's just kind of what makes this card really interesting. But again, I don't know how good this is going to be, but I'm leaning towards this is going to be more not so good than good. But I could be wrong. So those are all of the cards that we got over the past couple of days. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. And I'll see you in the next video.